Okay, this is going to be I don't really want to call it an attempt at rebooting a podcast that's probably going to be exclusive to YouTube for until I decide when I'll make an announcement if it ever goes anywhere else. But the future of the podcast will probably be on YouTube. And sometimes it will feature me actual with my webcam and whatnot. Other times it will be mini me, as I call him. You'll see on screen right now, just talking about this and that while playing the game and whatnot and what have you. So, yeah, there is that. Now, what you're seeing on screen right now is if everything is working right, you will most likely seeing some type of game. I'll put actual links in the description below to whatever games you're seeing. But I do want to talk about VR games and I want to talk about Steam Deck games, okay? Because it's very important because of the simple fact that let's talk about VR games first, okay? VR games are actually very fun once you get into them, okay? Now, I do know it's one of those things that can be a bit jarring at times if you're not into them or if it's your first experience. And then on top of that, if you have a small space, you might accidentally bump into something or whatnot. Personally, when it comes to stuff like that, I usually recommend like maybe simple trick standing in front of like if you're standing and playing, standing in front of like a bed or a table of some kind, just so you know that you're actually planted in a certain area, that you won't move and wonder about. That just till you get used to it. Or a lot of games these days have stationary options, which are options just that you can just like sit down or stay in one place, not move at all, and instead just move the controls and whatnot. And that will be your movement. And then you don't have to move your feet, you'll just maybe like interact if it's something like Batman Arkham Knight VR. Is it called Arkham Knight VR? Batman Arkham something VR. Batman VR. Then, you of course will be punching bad guys and it's actually a very fun experience. I made a whole video covering it actually. I'll leave a link in the description below to all the games I mentioned in this video. I'll put a link in the description below to where you can actually find and purchase the games. And if I can find some of my older videos, there might be some gameplay in the background. If not, then there be another game in the background. But Batman, the reason I bring up Batman VR because it's a very good game, okay? Then you'll have other games like Synth Riders, which I use at sort of a VR fitness type game, if you will. I might be actually making some YouTube shorts involving it, because the YouTube shorts I'll be able to play the full song without worrying about copyright strikes and what have you. So that's pretty cool with that, I believe. And then the VR shooting games, like I played that one game, I forgot what it was called, but basically you had to fight the candies. And I'll put a link in the description below to where you can actually buy the game and whatnot if you wish. I'll also put a link in the description below to the MetaQuest 3 headset, as well as the MetaQuest 3S headset, if you're interested in those. This particular podcast or whatnot is not sponsored by Meta, but this particular episode, Meta, if you want to sponsor the podcast in the future, just reach out to me and we'll see what we can work out. But anyway, I digress. I just really like VR stuff, okay? Now, with that said, I do want. Oh, also, if you're watching this on the YouTube, you'll see like a mini me that I mentioned in the beginning of the video or podcast that I'm talking about. But if you're just listening to this on the YouTube, it must be it must have been very confusing for you. You don't see the mini me, as it were. But yeah, I am still calling it V for Vamp, I think, the podcast. Yeah. Anyway, so I honestly do like VR content. The 3 games, I'm going to do a 4th game as an honorable mention, okay? And this 4th game is actually, I'd probably put it above almost every other game I mentioned, okay? For VR anyway. And that is going to be the game called Cosmosis High. Okay, it's a high school. Yeah, Cosmosis High School. So, yeah, that is the game. And it honestly is a very, very, very fun game. Okay. I say that because it's truly a very fun game. I actually played quite a bit of it. It was my first real VR experience. Technically, my first VR gaming experience was Borderlands 2, I guess, because the MetaQuest 3 can actually run your Steam VR games, technically. So, yeah, there's a whole thing about that. But the reason I don't consider it my first real experience, because Borderlands 2 VR is not optimized for VR at all. Because most of its high school is optimized for VR entirely through and through. The experience, it's such a good experience. You'll use your different abilities to solve puzzles and whatnot, and it's pretty cool. It's think of like an equivalent of like a point and whatever Omnitrix type stuff. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's very cool, actually. Very cool indeed. It's actually the first time that I literally got lost in VR for hours. Hours because I have headsets that a VR headset that I use which has a battery pack built into it, so it lets me get more time, which I always recommend if you're doing VR. But wait, we are not done. We talked about VR. Now we need to talk about the other thing that I mentioned, which is going to be the Steam Deck. Okay. I'm mentioning about the Steam Deck because I just recently got a Steam Deck. Okay. Yeah. I just recently got a Steam Deck not too long ago. Not to be confused with the Elgato Stream Deck. This is the Steam Deck. Valve's Steam Deck. It's what I got. And I'll be honest, it's a very fun experience. Now, you may say, oh, can't you just play most games that you play on Steam on the Steam, deck? And yeah, you can play a lot of games that you play on Steam on the Steam Deck. But certain games I feel like have a better experience on the Steam Deck. You get the benefit of being on handheld with the, somewhat power of a PC-like capability. Like, for example, I used to play a game called Mega Man Battle Network on my old Game Boy Advance back in the day, right? Well, recently, which I'll put a link to this in the description below too, in case you want to pick it up. But recently, they released a collection, Mega Man Battle Network collection. They released it on, PlayStation as well, which a lot of you guys may know. I play on PlayStation a lot, but it was cheaper on PC, first of all, because I got it during a Steam sale. And second of all, the experience, is exactly close enough to exactly how I remember. Because remember, the Game Boy Advance was a handheld thing. So my fondest memories of playing Mega Man Battle Network is playing it on a handheld device. So it honestly brings me joy to play the game. I actually made a whole video covering it on my other YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the description below to that video as well. Wait, was it on my other YouTube channel or was it on this channel? If it was on this channel, I'll put a link to the video regardless. But yeah, anyway, I really, really enjoyed it. And that's one of the things. I know what you're saying, but you buy it on Steam. Didn't you have to buy it twice? No, that's the thing. The Steam Deck uses your existing Steam library. So you don't have to rebuy the game. So once you buy it on Steam, once you even your back catalog, a lot of them will be compatible with the Steam Deck. Now, I will admit some games do this whole weird thing where they rely a lot on the touch screen input on the Steam Deck, because the Steam Deck does have a touch screen, okay? So any of those mobile games that were ported to PC and they don't have actual controls for, well, you can need a touch screen. Yeah. A lot of games, the touch screen imitates the mouse click. So, you would tap instead of, say, clicking the mouse button or whatnot. And honestly, it's just fun that way, I think. It's very fun. It's fun being able to use a touch screen interface on games that you normally don't use touch screen on. I don't know. There's some novelty about it. But yeah, that's my whole thing about the VR gaming and the Steam Deck itself. Now, you will probably catch me doing more videos in the future, okay, on both VR and on the Steam Deck, okay? Because I really, really enjoy that stuff. But if I do choose to keep on going with this podcast type video format thing, then you will probably hear stuff about other games. I talk about Warframe a lot because Warframe is one of the things, okay? I play so much Warframe. Okay, Warframe is that game that I go back to. Yeah, Warframe is that game that I just keep coming back to time after time. Because, yeah, Warframe is my main squeeze, as it were, for now. Now, that could end, that could, age poorly, and Warframe could crash and burn, and no one play Warframe and whatnot. But as of right now, 2025, and what month is it? July of 2025. I really enjoy Warframe quite a bit, okay? So, yeah, I dabble in other games from time to time. Can you imagine playing just one game 24/7? I feel like burnout would be real with that. But yeah, Warframe is one of the games that it's neither VR, it's not a VR game, and it's not exclusive to the Steam Deck. You can play on the Steam Deck, technically. You can play it on the Steam Deck. It actually runs pretty well on the Steam Deck, honestly. You can pull, but the other game I used to play a lot, I haven't touched much these days, is Destiny 2. I thought about getting back into it. I tried to get back into it, if I'm being honest, but I didn't make it that far. Every now and then I'm like, hey, there's a new thing out. I should get back into it. But yeah, between you and me, Destiny 2 had taken a lot of my money. Like a lot of my money, okay? I used to buy expansion after expansion with Destiny 2. It was just one of those things that, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Now, there was one big, the latest last expansion that I ended up getting access to was I forget what it's called. That's how long it's been since I played. But it's that expansion where we got the new subclass thing with the prismatic whatnot, or what have you, prismatic subclass, or whatever it's called. That was the last expansion. I actually did beat that campaign. Now I admit I was a little disappointed where they said, oh, there's a special prismatic exotic thing, but you can only do it with you can only do the mission with a teammate, and that the or a partner, and that the only way to get it, and it takes 20 plus minutes of you and the teammate you have actually focusing. Okay, you know what? I'm talking about Warframe and Destiny 2 again. I can't help myself. So that's the kind of stuff you can expect me to talk about, okay? Just whatever's on my mind at the time, which, of course, this is a gaming channel. The podcast is just like an extra bit of whatever. But since it's the gaming channel, you can expect gaming, not really news, maybe some news. Gaming news seems like something I might cover every now and again. But if it's VR related news, then you're probably best checking out my other channel. I cover a lot of VR stuff on there. I have some VR gameplays on Vamp Plays on the channel you're watching, but when it comes to talking about more VR sales or VR behind the scenes, and some first impressions even of certain VR things, not just limited to the games, then I technically is the place you'll want to be. I even did my unboxing of the Steam Deck over on that channel. So yeah, just expect me to be all over the place at times, okay? Sometimes gaming news, sometimes just information on games I'm playing at the moment, sometimes just talking about my favorite games at the moment, or what I think about this game or that game, or the state of this game or the state of that game. You know, just simple stuff. But yeah, definitely let me know. And I'm going to try to do this once a week, but don't, like I said, don't quote me on that. Sometimes I might not end up doing it at all. It really just depends how busy I am, because I do actually run 4 channels at the moment. I'll put a link to them in the description below. I handle 4 channels. So, yeah. Yeah, I think I'm going to end it off here. And with that said, hopefully I will catch you guys in a future podcast type thing. And yeah, we'll see what happens. Later.